Just, Mr. Limburg, let me just ask, I mean, are the funds appropriated for emergency U.S. food aid for FY12 adequate to meet the anticipated needs identified for the Horn of Africa, as well as other emergencies around the world? And what changes in programming and aid to the Horn of Africa can we expect to see as a result of the 2013 administration budget request? That's just
Sorry,
not working,
forgot
I
about
guess. Yeah. We usually give that microphone to witnesses we don't like.
That's right.
So
Thank you.
Yeah. So we want to make sure that that shouldn't be there. It's for another panel.
That's right. Thank you. And, I wanted to just preface my response by saying that you made the comment about how important it is to tell the story. And one of the challenges that we have is that because of how complicated this is and how far away it is, it has been more of a challenge to grab attention. I mean, 13.3 million people is a huge number, and it's hard to get people's heads around that. It's more than Haiti and tsunami affected population combined. It's more than the combined population of New York and Los Angeles.
I think sometimes because these numbers are so huge that we've lost kind of our human ability to feel them.
That's right.
You hear all these statistics on the news, and I know for me, visiting, troubled areas, refugee camps, and seeing firsthand some of the challenges and the difficulties that people face. I mean, it's heartbreaking. But with statistics are constantly thrown at us, and I think people just get numbed when you say 13 million people. And so I agree with you. I mean, I think that this is, unfortunately, this shouldn't be that tough of a story to get out there, but it's something that we need to respond to. I mean, if we stand for anything in this country, it ought to be for human rights, and human rights means making sure people don't starve to death. And I think the work that you and some of the UN agencies have done and the non-governmental organizations has really been quite incredible. We just need to keep doing it, and also, as I said before, kind of figure out ways as we're responding to this crisis to see whether we can strengthen some of these local communities in a way where they can withstand natural disasters in the future.
Amen to that. And part of what we need to do, and we are making big progress on this, is make sure that we don't lose attention in between the crisis cycles.
Right.
And I'm very encouraged by the efforts that we've made over this past 8 months to create joint planning groups so that our development and relief people are sitting together and making plans as of last July for what will come on the other end of the emergency program. And looking at how to build on the resilience that was created by the emergency programs and taking that forward. And there has been a real commitment to do that, and we want to be able to tell the story both of the unacceptable heartbreak of women bringing in 2-year-olds who weigh 10 pounds, as well as the extraordinary progress that can be made with the focused attention and assistance that is enabled by the assistance from the American people. So we're looking very hard at how to make all of our emergency dollars count by improving the nutrition of the food that we do provide and building resilience where we can, even as we provide emergency assistance. And as we look ahead, we're hoping that we can continue to move people out of chronic crisis, as we did with the productive food safety net, into something that begins to emerge.
I think, again, this G8 meeting provides an opportunity to help tell the story, and to also, come out with a very strong challenge to the world community that, here is something that if we work together on this. I always tell people this is not just a U.S. responsibility; it's an international responsibility. But if we take the leadership in the global community, telling this story, but also, explain to people there's a different way too. There's a way to invest now in strengthening, these local communities, helping communities be able to build up resistance to some of these natural disasters that will impact in a very positive way, what we have to do in the future. Again, what was going on in Ethiopia, what was invested on, help make it not as bad. We should have been doing this for years before this. But I appreciate that. Ms. McKelvey, one of the things that we've heard a lot about and we're troubled by, is that Ethiopian authorities have kind of severely restricted humanitarian access to refugee camps in Ethiopia. And I guess, what are we doing in the international community to try to encourage the Ethiopian authorities to provide greater access to these camps? Because that's an issue I've heard a lot about.
Okay. I think we have a pretty good partnership with the Ethiopian government. They have their Administration for Refugee and Returnee Affairs, of course, that is a major implementing partner of the UN along with the NGOs. So I don't think we would necessarily share the view that there is a great deal of restriction on access to the camps. There is perhaps a greater degree of central government control in Ethiopia than in the neighboring countries over which agencies are allowed to operate in the country. And the issue of malnutrition that we were talking about earlier has led ARA to insist very strongly on choosing the partners that will be in the chain of activities that all result, hopefully, in better nutritional outcome. And I know there's been some dyspepsia among some of agencies that have found that they were told that, well, we really don't want you operating in this particular element of refugee assistance.
Right.
We'll put you in another element. Or there were some harsh statements made that the malnutrition is intolerable, which it is, of course, and therefore those who were working on it are out of a job and new partners will be brought in. But that hasn't, I don't think, really translated into a lack of humanitarian access to the camps. There's one area, and we didn't bring maps, but the longest term Somali refugees are in the Jijiga area, the Ogaden, more to next to Somaliland, if you will. And those people have been there, many of them, since 1988. Then the newest camps are really over by the where Kenya and Ethiopia come together in the western corner. In between, there's an area called Gode, where we have had refugees crossing, and that is an area that is a security area for the government, and they've been less willing to see refugee camps set up there. But again, UNHCR and others have been able to travel there to assess the condition of the people who are pretty much integrated into local villages. We've had very good access to the Eritrean camps, very good access to the Sudanese camps. I think maybe this question arises from the what some would say is a heavy-handed central government dictating who is going to be able to operate.
Ms. Malik, it's an encouraging sign that the United Nations is moving an office from Nairobi back to Mogadishu. Does the United States have any plans for reestablishing a permanent diplomatic presence in Mogadishu?
Thank you. Secretary Clinton actually addressed this issue in London at the conference. I think we are very happy that the UN has moved its offices back into Mogadishu. We encourage them to move all of their staff, because if they really hope to influence the political progress that needs to happen over the next 6 to 7 months, they need to be present in order to do that. We ourselves are looking very carefully at how and when we can have people more present in Somalia. However, of course, we have to take into account the security situation, which in some cases is very different for us as the United States than it might be for other actors. But certainly we are looking at every possible way to have people travel in, even for short periods of time. But we are probably a ways away before looking at a more permanent structure.
Yeah, and let me also just say to everybody here, all of us, I said this in the opening statement, I want to say it again. I mean, we are grateful to the people on the ground, who are in refugee camps, who are dealing with some of these humanitarian challenges. I mean, it is dangerous for a lot of workers who are represent our government, and we're very, very grateful for that. I guess my last point in question is this. I'm grateful for the work that our government has done. I'm proud of our government for being involved in this effort. I want us to take a greater leadership role, even beyond the great things we're already doing, because I'm very impatient on this subject, as I know you are. I mean, that's why I think this G8 summit is an opportunity. We have a UN annual meeting in September is another opportunity. I mean, you know, there's lots of things that it's hard for us to come to agreement on. It would seem to me on these issues of not only responding to emergencies, but coming up with a comprehensive global plan to try to prevent these emergencies from happening to begin with. I mean, an all-out statement that we are committed to ending hunger, in the world, which is a big idea, but it's like something that we can do. I remember a bunch of groups who operate humanitarian relief efforts all across the world came together, and did a roadmap to end hunger. You can do it, and I'm going to tell you, it's a hell of a lot cheaper than fighting a war, and I think a lot more in our national security interest. So that's what I want. We need this leadership, and again, I appreciate Secretary Clinton. We need the president to be talking about this stuff too, and so my question to you is, my final question is, what else can we be doing up here? What are we not doing that we should be doing? And you can say whatever you want, because it's just amongst us in this room. So, yeah. And the cameras.
You're right. Well, I would just say that we share your passion and your conviction that these are solvable problems, and the urgency to do so. And I think there are sometimes moments of opportunity that arise out of these enormous crises. And there is a focusing moment when 13 million people are unacceptably in crisis that helps define the problem and the solution set. I think building on what happened with the commitments in L'Aquila, right, that led to Feed the Future, connecting that to what we're doing at the end of March in Nairobi, where it's a very specific set of problems and a call to action, where there's a lot of momentum for the international donor community to say, we will stay engaged even after that first mobilization of humanitarian assistance to address hunger in the Horn. And USAID is convening this conference as a response to plans developed by the African nations to support and to have mutual accountability. And this will lead to the G8, where we are absolutely seized with highlighting this and highlighting some specific solutions. So I think you're doing exactly what needs to be done, which is to continue to help us keep the spotlight on both the urgency and the opportunities to really move forward on this problem. So we thank you and would welcome the opportunity to continue the conversation and to ensure that we're able to do these kinds of programs to ensure that we have what we need to be the world leader on ending hunger. If no one else has anything else to add, let me just say that I just throw one other thing out there too, and that is that, this issue to me is so essential. This issue of ending hunger is so essential to our national security, to global security, that this is the kind of thing that, perhaps the Secretary of State might think of, asking for a joint meeting of Democrats and Republicans, our two caucuses getting together, and actually helping people understand what we have been able to do, working with the international community, working with the United Nations, and then, and reintroducing this idea of Feed the Future and about, we have a plan, but we need some congressional buy-in. These are tough budgetary times. I get it, but you can't let people starve in emergencies. I mean, it's just immoral, and we are doing it better, I think, than ever before in terms of kind of approaching some of these humanitarian issues. But I want there to be bipartisan buy-in, and I want people to understand what we've done, because too often I don't think they do. And so I don't know if my colleague Donna Edwards has a question.
I do. Thank you, Mr. McGovern. And I apologize that I'm late. It's always something else to do, but I wanted to make sure to be here, and I appreciate Mr. McGovern's leadership, and wanted especially to be here to hear you, and I'll be able to see the record, and particularly to pay respects to my good friend, Nancy Lindborg. I haven't seen you in such a long time, but have been following all the work that you've been doing, and just continue to admire you and all of you and your efforts. I was thinking earlier this week about our colleague that we lost, Donald Payne, who enlightened me in so many ways about the needs of the continent, and understanding that in these places that have endured conflict and people are displaced, that the human needs are ever so important. And so I know that all of us are also remembering him and his advocacy this morning. But it reminds us, I think, as Mr. McGovern said, that when you feed people, they like you. And you like them. And it makes it much more difficult for there to be future areas of conflict and disagreement. And I think for the United States, our interest, of course, our interest is in making certain that deep humanitarian needs don't go unaddressed. But it is in our national security interest that those needs don't go unaddressed. And as people are displaced, as they suffer, there is some culpability there, and a responsibility that we have as a developed nation. Now, this morning, I spent time actually out at an elementary school in my congressional district. We were at a breakfast program for students who need to receive breakfast, lunch, and dinner at school. We know that this question of deep hunger goes throughout our world, and we try to take care of those needs here at home. Sometimes we don't do such a great job of that, but we also have a collective responsibility to take care of those needs outside of our homes, outside of our own borders. And so I just appreciate the work that you're doing, and I think that there is an opportunity that we have actually to act more collectively, in addition to being aggressive, about the ways in which we deliver assistance, but that we stabilize regions and help people figure out for themselves over some period of time, and with assistance, how to meet their own needs. They want to. And so it's not just about asking, but it's also about preparing people in this generation and the next to meet their own needs and capacities. And so I thank you very much for bringing us here, and I look forward to the other panels, and to continuing to work with my colleagues to do, as Mr. McGovern has said, to make this a call not just for a handful of members of Congress who happen to share an interest, but to make it a call for all of us as members of Congress, because it's in our own interest as well as the interest of the world. So thank you very much for being here today.
And thank you again. And my colleague, Congressman Frank Wolf, who is also very much committed to this, I know wanted to be here today. But so thank you, and please tell the people that you work with thank you. It's probably the only hearing you're ever going to be where anyone says thank you. But we're just here to cheer you on, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.